In the centuries following the destruction of the Second Temple, scholars like Rabbi Akiva initiated a massive jurisprudential project. They possessed thousands of received oral traditions, and they set out to tie every spoken law back to a specific verse in the written Torah. To accomplish this, they deployed an algorithmic framework of 13 hermeneutical principles. These were precise tools of linguistic and logical analysis used to extract legal meaning directly from the scripture. This network maps their methodology. Each legal node represents a distinct oral tradition. By applying the 13 principles, the scholars shot tethers from the oral law, locking them into the central pillar of the written Torah. This effort integrated thousands of isolated traditions into a dense, interconnected framework. Yet a specific subset of legal nodes rejected the tethers. They stood structurally sound, but remained disconnected from the central text. Out of the entire corpus of thousands of oral laws, approximately 30 fell into this untethered category. Even the greatest minds of the Supreme Court, applying all 13 principles in every conceivable variation, could find no logical or textual link to anchor these specific laws to the scripture. This creates a gap in the legal theory. If a law cannot be derived from, or even loosely anchored to, the foundational text, the system must justify its validity on an entirely different basis. Despite the lack of textual proof, the ancient courts did not reject or marginalize these 30 anomalies. They enforced them as binding constitutional law, granting them equal weight to the explicit written text. The scholars who admitted defeat on these specific laws were operating with extreme analytical rigor. They exhausted every permutation of their hermeneutical tools and still found zero textual proof. While the written Torah contains dense columns of granular detail on hundreds of practices, it remains silent regarding these 30. These anomalies mark a hard epistemological boundary, the exact point where human textual analysis stops. The ancient courts assigned a precise term to this category of untethered laws: Halacha leMoshe miSinai. The designation is reserved for laws received directly from Moses at Sinai that possess no textual hint and cannot be logically derived. The requirement for tefillin serves as the definitive physical case study. The law dictates two precise physical requirements. It must be black and square. If you apply the tools of hermeneutical logic to the biblical verses mentioning tefillin, there is no path to extract the concepts of black or square from the text. There is no hidden code or textual inference that leads to those physical properties. Despite the absence of textual proof, the requirement for black square tefillin is followed universally across the entire Jewish world. The validity of these physical requirements exists through an unbroken chain of historical transmission. It proves that objective law can exist independent of textual deduction. A second major case study involves shiurim, highly precise legal quantities. For example, the physical volume of an olive, known as a kazayit, is established as the threshold for legal liability when consuming certain foods. The jurists knew that the public needed a reliable way to remember these specific, untethered quantities accurately. The courts attached these physical quantities to specific biblical verses to create a mental association. The precise legal term for this artificial attachment is asmakta. An asmakta functions as a memory device. It is not a logical or hermeneutical derivation. The ancient courts could have masqueraded these memory aids as true logical derivations to project an aura of total textual authority. Instead, the court permanently labeled them as memory devices, maintaining a clear distinction between logic and tradition. This explicit use of asmakta prioritizes the accuracy of legal transmission over the aesthetics of a unified, textually coherent system. Any law derived strictly through human deduction can always be challenged by an opposing, equally rigorous logical deduction. The engine of the Talmud is this very clash of human logic and counter-logic. We must contrast this fluidity with the 30 pillars of Halacha leMoshe miSinai. Throughout the entire 3,000-year history of Jewish jurisprudence, there has never been a dispute regarding the core definition of a Halacha leMoshe miSinai. Because these 30 laws rely on a transmitted historical reality rather than human deduction, they offer no entry point for debate. By bypassing the mechanisms of human reasoning, These specific laws are immunized against counterlogic. This consensus held firm across continents and through vastly different legal cultures. While scholars debated the shifting web of textual derivations, they gave objective reverence to these 30 untethered laws. The very inability to reverse engineer these specific untethered laws back to the core text was actually the system's greatest and most profound validation. The survival of these anomalies proves that an independent oral transmission existed alongside the written text. These laws stand as the immutable pillars of an objective legal tradition, undisputed for 3 millennia.